Start the morning right with a cup of Vinyl Tap. Nothing beats the refreshing taste of a hot, warm mug of Vinyl Tap. Enjoy your podcast in liquid form today. Vinyl Tap. Enjoy responsibly.
2, 1.
Vinyl Tap.
I'm
Tim,
Jason.
and we just listened to a bunch of Hyperpop albums over the past month. What did we listen to? We listened to Cypress Grove by Glaive.
1,000 gecs by 100 gecs.
And some album by charli XCX.
How I'm feeling
How
now.
I'm feeling.
now.
Yeah. This is what happens when you don't allow me to have my notes right in front of me.
Oh, this is all my
This is
fault.
all your
Before
fault.
the domestic begins, fellas, what do we think of Hyperpop?
I like it. I really do.
Hyperpop, I think I should wear this mesh shirt more often.
Yes.
Second question.
Sorry, the mesh onesie.
The mesh onesie.
Yeah, that goes all
Hyperpop's,
the way.
yeah, it's good. Well, I don't know.
Second question. What is Hyperpop?
What is yeah.
That's a...
As the foremost export, you should be able to tell us.
First export. It's...
It's a loosely defined micro-genre of popular music.
Yeah, basically it stems from pop music and pushes things that wouldn't generally fit in with pop music, at least not currently, but it's very likely that what is happening will become pop music.
Why do you say that?
Because it's already starting to bleed in.
Provide examples.
Charli XCX, How I'm Feeling Now.
It's nowhere near as popular as her other work.
No.
It's not as popular.
Yes,
that's what
but
you're
it's
saying.
still within the mainstream.
So do you mean that it's like the elements of it are going to...
Seep.
So we're going to start seeing like...
Is Miley Cyrus
yeah.
going to have the bit crush drums and the sweeping whoosh and the...
Miley Cyrus, maybe not, because she's just done the 80s throwback.
Yeah, true.
But it really, I think you're going to see like the next kind of generation of pop stars that come through steer into it more.
Yeah, it's true. Maybe 100 gecs are the next thing.
Potentially.
It could be.
Like they've got a lot of listens for at least my understanding of them being
For
obscure.
what's supposed to be an underground micro genre.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's a lot of ties from this genre. Well, from the 3 albums we listened to like that kind of mid 2000s, late 2000s electronic music scene. And from what I understand, a lot of that stuff bled into.
Yeah, that's
Underground
true.
stuff always
Like you
does.
look at Chainsmokers and you compare that to the sounds of that movement.
Yeah.
And it made it. Those things made it to there, but of course a lot of the other sensibilities of that movement did not make it.
Yeah.
Because, Crystal Castles played with game consoles in their instruments, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you don't see pop artists doing that.
Well, no, but a lot of those sounds are now just accessible on doors.
They were also at the time.
Yeah,
If you had the high-end stuff
But I
at
was
the
going to say,
time.
but this is readily available for someone with a laptop in their bedroom
Yep.
to make in this day and age, which it wasn't that accessible back in the early noughties.
Yeah. Is there something to the lockdown of 2020 that a lot of the world experienced and a big explosion in this kind of...
Well, I think the
style?
main thing is that all the kids are on TikTok.
I was going to say, I don't think I agree with that because I think this started before the lockdown.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sure it added to it
But-
because a lot of
so,
larger
yeah.
artists didn't release because of the lockdown because they couldn't make their money from touring and merchandise.
Yeah.
So it made more sense to sit on an album, and we're starting to see,
Kids in their living rooms making their own albums.
well, yeah, like Olivia Rodrigo is an
yeah.
example of that.
And
but I was going to say...
apparently Glaive.
So, but that's the other thing, right? Teenagers in their bedrooms now can make an album and release it without having to interact with a single other person because of the way technology functions now, which was not possible, or it was, but it was a lot harder to do in the early noughties than what it currently is.
Yeah,
Indeed.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
wonder why the people making this music have... it seems to be like a throwback or a reference to that late 2000s movement and dubstep and, even things as far back as the 80s. Like, how do those two things work together?
Is it a
Isn't that
reference or is
interesting?
it just an evolution?
Because I was going to say, look at something like... jazz fusion, or even the way that you write, you combine a lot of different elements that you've listened to and you enjoy.
So did all of these people making the hyperpop music listen to, like, were they all into Skrillex?
Probably.
I mean, everyone was. We love you, Skrillex. Come back. He's still around.
He's still around.
He hasn't gone anywhere.
I'm pretty sure he released a single less than a week ago.
I think when I looked at the Spotify Hyperpop playlist, he was on it.
So here he is.
Here he is. Listening, I hope.
Thanks, Skrillex.
Shout out. I think those are really good questions. My sample size of Hyperpop is 3 albums that we've listened to over the past month. So feel like I can't answer any of those.
Oh, all of my ideas that I'm positing are based on a slightly larger sample size.
And he's the foremost expert on the subject.
Not at all. It's not a genre that I am within and speaking from like an insider voice. It is something that has fascinated me as a movement and I've wanted to experience and explore.
When it was, I think the first thing I read about hyperpop was that it was a maximalist movement. That it was, and like maximalism is the opposite of minimalism, obviously. And minimalism is like using the least material possible to create interest.
Yeah.
And maximalism, I don't think I got that from Charli XCX.
I disagree. Vocally, super, like it had that like overdriven sound where it was like in your face,
But
super
that's
rhythmic.
Okay, if we're gonna hone in on vocals, she reused a vocal ostinato to create bedrock for something. That's like an explicitly minimalist thing to do.
Not even that.
so.
Within the first few songs that had like verse and chorus sort of sections, reusing vocal melodies, like that's not maximalist because there's material being
whereas
reused.
Glaive and gecs, shout out to gecs, gecs 3 on the PlayStation 2. Like every 10 seconds, there's a new idea.
Sure, okay.
That's what I mean.
Okay, so like going off those 3 albums though, I'm still willing to say that
I'm sure
Charli
it is
XCX
hyperpop. I don't fucking know.
Had all of those kind of hyperpop tropes in it, in that like the rhythmic backing behind it, the vocals, the way that they're like...
Gonna pause you straight away.
Yeah.
Trap beats are just a pop trope.
No, I'm not talking about trap beats. I'm talking about like the use of noise, or like white noise to create... to create like a back or a bedrock for things to work off. Or using vocals as a bedrock to like build stuff off. And sure, it was kind of like easier listening, but it still had all of those same things that I noted in
it had
both.
all.
To some extent, and it
had a lot, and it's definitely within the realm of hyperpop, but there are distinctions.
You know what? I'm not going to die on the
noting.
hill of the technicality. I think that like it had the musical elements appear, and nearly all of the musical elements appear, not in the same like whiplash way. But
what I've seen is that album in particular is described like using quite a few terms. Experimental pop. Was one of them,
but
and the other 2 albums we listened to are hyper. Like I only saw them described as hyperpop.
Okay,
right,
interesting, right?
Because making distinctions on and discussing those differences are kind of important, and especially when this is like a new genre, deciding what is and isn't, and obviously us talking about it isn't deciding it. The people creating it and involved in it are the ones who make the decisions as to what is and isn't hyperpop. But from an outside perspective, I feel like the structure is important because it makes it very distinctly different. And also the other big thing was the satirical nature of the first 2 albums we listened to versus the kind of genuine pop lines.
Yeah, but is being satirical like
what we're here to figure out?
Yeah,
well, like
I don't think
maybe.
that being satirical is an element of it. I don't know. I didn't. From my
I don't know if
brief...
Glaive. I don't think Glaive was taking the piss out of mumble rap. I think he was just mumbling while he was singing, because he's a teenager.
Yeah.
And this is how he sings.
And doing a quick safari on Spotify and just listening to little bits of song. Like, I don't know. It might be, some of it might be satirical, but I don't think it's like,
A lot of it is just a
like a
genuine.
hallmark
This is
of
what our music is. And
yeah. Because
Yeah.
like it goes back to that question, right? At what point?
you're not making parody anymore.
Yeah,
you're
not
just
making
making
parody.
pop.
Yes. I don't know. It's interesting to discuss, especially when something isn't well established and you can point to this example, to that example, and this is the trajectory it's on.
Yep.
It's kind of still very much in its infancy in a lot of ways. And
Little baby hyperpop.
yeah, and it's fun, and there's a lot of different ways it could pan out. A lot of people are kind of thinking that the hyperpop elements are going to seep into pop, which
Just means that
just means
hyperpop is
it
pop.
becomes pop, and that is likely because something we haven't really spoken about except for with glaive is the short song times, which trends very well with like algorithms and the way that technology is like influencing music. Things like TikTok even just plays on Spotify because
You get more plays.
you
if
get
the
more
song's
plays,
shorter.
you get more, and I'm sure that's not like a thought going into it. This is just stylistically what happens in the genre.
When everyone uses platforms whose marketing is determined by algorithms which are optimized to get views, get clicks, then I reckon it probably would optimize shorter songs. So that could be an element of why this is taken off.
I mean, if you want to try and shoehorn in some kind of historical comparison,
Which
like,
you're about to.
I'm totally going to do it.
Hell yeah.
The punk movement of kind of going maximalist in a lot of ways, making everything short, frenzied, and energetic.
Sure.
In complete reaction to like something that is starting to get so glamorous and kind of caught up in
So
itself.
like stadium rock.
Yeah.
And like the tail end of the prog rock in the 70s, right?
Yeah. And like, I feel like
I completely see the analogy.
using WAP as an example, it's like so just produced and over the top, and it's like, holy
Well,
fuck.
we have to do something about this.
Where else can it even go? Like, it's already so huge and in your face and ridiculous. And so, like, having this explosion of, like, just full-on in-your-face sound, really short songs, and just, like, is that kind of what's happening here?
Potentially.
Will we find out in 10 years?
Probably.
Is Hyperpop going to influence music, like, punked in and just become, like, a part of regular everyday life in most genres?
I would assume so because of a lot of the production. I mean, like,
Just the stupidest idea. Because, you know how pop punk became a thing in the late
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah.
Are we going to see pop hyperpop?
Potentially,
Where people incorporate
You're
the...
not real pop
Because
Hyperpop
here's the
now.
thing, pop punk is completely ironic. Like, it's...
Yeah.
It incorporates elements of this movement that was supposed to spit in the face of pop,
but
and
that's
it's made
what
of pop.
counterculture does. Counterculture,
Gets
if it gets
eaten by the
popular enough,
man.
gets eaten by the mainstream. And all of the production elements in this, all of the, the tones and the sounds and the through composing are something that could easily be absorbed and incorporated into other genres.
Through composed pop songs are such an anomaly. And I'd love to see a movement where it happens. I very much doubt that it will. I think that if an element of hyperpop is adopted large scale into the mainstream, it won't be that.
I mean, probably not, but
I can think of...
I would hope it. That's like probably my favorite aspect of hyperpop that we've listened to is the through composing.
Yeah, sure. I liked it too. Great. I don't see general audiences like verses and choruses have been so important to so many people's understanding of music.
Sure, but there was a time where they weren't as well.
When
Jazz.
you mean
No,
jazz
A&B,
songs have
yeah.
heads?
Yeah, no.
Like the chorus is such an ingrained institution in the way people consume music that I have a tough time believing that that's going to be how this genre influences pop.
I very much agree with you.
Cool, you
but
should.
I
But-
I do. But I can dream.
Yeah. Sure. I can think of like two enormous, huge songs across like all the popular music that are completely through composed, and I'd love to hear more. But I can only think of Stairway to Heaven and Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bohemian Rhapsody is always what comes to my mind when you talk about through composed.
I've got nothing else.
I can't think of anything else at the
Off
moment.
the top of my head.
Oh, Paranoid Android, kind of.
Weird
Weird how Radiohead came up again.
But that's not like
It's not
hugely
huge. No, you're
popular,
right.
Like that's not a Bohemian Rhapsody.
Because
kind
if we talk about that, we might as well talk
megalith.
about Dream Theater.
Yeah,
And then we're going to
to
stuff that's
prog.
just too niche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like
prog's
cool.
probably not like
No, it's
large
not popular.
enough.
Like Rush did a bunch of through composed stuff, but they were never,
You're not going to
forefront.
get
They're not
stadiums-
Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, you're not going to get stadiums of people waiting to see band singing along with the PA system of Bohemian Rhapsody. Like they're not going to be singing along to Rush.
Yeah. Well, Rush is a bad example because people like they do fill stadiums.
Okay.
Did.
Well,
Did. Rip.
Yeah, poor
yeah.
Neil.
Yeah.
Very off topic here.
I think we're on topic. We're talking about we're talking about structure.
Yeah.
It's a big part of the genre.
It
Micro
is.
genre, loosely defined micro genre.
Where does stuff like Doja Cat and I can't think of any other examples. Where do they fit into this realm?
What is Doja Cat?
Isn't
I
Doja
don't really
Cat
know
just pop?
I believe she
Is
is
it?
at this point.
I
Is
think
she-
so, right? Isn't Doja Cat just pop?
But she's so extreme though. Like
Yes, pop
yeah,
is
but
extreme.
that's pop at the moment.
And it has been for a while.
So how do you
yeah.
delineate between the two?
This is why I think the through composing is important for.
No, I
the
disagree.
hyperpop.
I disagree with that because
Doja Cat's not using Bit Crush drums.
maybe that's because I feel like the Charlie XCX album, Wish You Were, whatever it is.
How
I need my notes.
How
to
I'm
remember-
feeling
how-
now.
How I'm feeling now.
Hi, how you doing?
That's
Hey, hi. How you doing?
that. I feel like had. I feel like that's how it's going to influence pop. So you get
Probably.
those big crush sounds. You get the. I was going to say you get the trap beats. You get the vocals that are like distorted, or you get like the really heavy bass sounds. Probably not the through composition.
Oh, again,
vibes.
I agree with you, but that's what I think the distinction is for hyperpop, though, because Charli XCX is an established pop artist adopting these hyperpop elements into her music, and that, at least again from my understanding of it, and it's definitely hyperpop what she has done, but not in the same aspect, the same like.
Are we gonna see like people gatekeeping hyperpop and being like, no, this
Probably.
is hardcore hyperpop, and
Yeah.
you're making bubblegum hyperpop or some shit?
Yeah,
like
probably
that.
because that
You
always
reckon
happens
though?
with genres. Yeah, because people
You're
get
not
so
real punk.
people get very attached to this is the clear delineation of what the genre is and how it functions. And then when someone pushes boundaries in a new and interesting way, they're like, "That's not it. Fuck you. You're
all
ruining
because,
my genre that I'm a part of."
People have such strong feelings about such an abstract and nebulous idea.
Yeah, and they're so like stand on this is how it is. This is how it has to be. That when
But it's
people
like
do
an
something.
online movement, right?
Sure, but that doesn't mean that people aren't involved and don't have their feelings attached to it.
I guess so, but it's harder to like alienate people online than it is to do that. Oh,
Is
maybe
it?
Maybe not.
Where people are anonymous and feel no consequences behind the things they say. Read YouTube comments and tell me that it's difficult to alienate people online.
Yeah, well, look, I redact that statement. I'm going to leave it there. but I'm
welcome
just
to
gonna,
redacted.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do envision that someone absolutely adoring hyperpop and having their definitive version of what it is, and then gatekeeping when someone does something else with it.
Oh, it totally happened.
Yeah.
It's already happening, no doubt.
I'm going to say strongly no way or the other because I don't know.
But circling back
If I
to
don't make it out of this, tell my wife I said hello.
circling back to the length of time on the songs before we got into that maximalist
Yeah.
kind of thing. I can't claim with certainty because I'm not a TikTok user, but I think a lot of these songs fit the way that TikTok treats music, in that you've
Right.
TikToks go for like max a minute, and you want things to be interesting and keep people's attention while it's there, and can be used in a way that blow up. And I don't think it's an intention of them going into writing it, but it is a consequence of the platforms that are being used.
I know that Vine was never as big as TikTok is currently, but was there a movement of 7-second songs? I know that like Bo Burnham wrote like short little like one-line jokes out of songs, but
I don't know of.
He also predicted TikTok, by the way.
Yes, he did. I don't know of any musical Vine stars, and I think that's
Jake Paul.
I bet. Whereas like there's starting to be artists that come from TikTok that are breaking through into the mainstream.
TikTok began as like a music app, right? Where it was
the duet function.
It was a duet function. Was its
Is
main
that where it
thing?
started?
Like Musically and those a cappella.
Yeah, so
Right.
you would. I think it was. I'm not sure if you could sing, but like there was, dancing was definitely a big thing where you basically danced and then someone could
dance along
with you and you do that duet thing. And so I think that's, as far as I understand, why there's such a big connection with like music becoming super popular from TikTok, because that was always integrated.
As far as I'm aware, TikTok is one of the like better platforms at dealing with music and copyright, and I don't really know how it works, but obviously you can use songs, and artists and larger artists are letting their music be used for people within TikTok, and there's royalties going to them somehow, as far as I'm aware.
Right.
I'm not 100%, but it's like good promotion for them because of how big the app is.
Yeah.
I don't know if it ever really started, because again, a lot of people were theorizing that Lil Nas X would not be able to like stick around after Old Town Road. But
why?
Because he was the first one to blow up from TikTok, and it's a bit of a meme song. Right. The video was like just footage of Red Dead Redemption, but he has proved them wrong. I can't remember what's it called? His latest single that is massive. The video clip is like him grinding on Satan.
No.
My name is something.
It's not Hyperpop.
It's not Hyperpop, but it's like shown that he
has staying
power within the industry, which is cool, and that kind of legitimizes other people using TikTok as a launching point.
Interesting pattern, because we saw the same thing happen with YouTube musicians. We see the same thing happening with Disney starlets coming out. People are like, oh, that'll never work. And then here we are with Miley Cyrus. Is still
Olivia Rodrigo is now the
yeah. And Miley Cyrus has been famous for the past how long? 16 years, something like that.
I think maybe even more.
Yeah, so that worked out. And, other avenues of people becoming successful musicians, and people have been like, oh, that won't work. They don't have staying power. They're always wrong.
Literally, yeah.
The new thing is going to work, Dad. And Hyperpop is here to stay. I don't have any feeling in this finger.
Please end it now.
Is that where we want to end?
Sure. I guess so. Unless you've got anything else to say.
We didn't talk about
I was going to say.
Okay.
So we can...
Hard cut to the other camera.
Yeah.
Camera.
So, look, I'm going to go out on a limb. Based on your opinions, I lost this month.
It's a fine album. It's just not the best.
I would recommend the album.
Yeah.
But it's a tough month to bring that album to.
I think my favorite's definitely 100 gecs.
It's your favorite album of all time.
It is. It's going to be a contender. I'm going to bring this up at the end of year wrap up. 1000 gecs. I've been listening to it since.
I listened to it again as well.
Yeah, it's fucking great. Shout out to Ringtone, actually. Big
busy.
Honourable mention to Ringtone.
I remember that song's fucking good.
Yeah.
It's super easy to listen to it as well because it's so short.
Yeah, it's mate. Just hit that replay button.
Jason, will you be voting for yourself?
I actually think I want to vote for Glaive.
I think that Glaive had a stronger album.
I think I agree with that.
I think that it being 13 minutes long has a big part in accomplishing that.
Potentially. Do you think that the shorter the Hyperpop album, the better the album? Is that the trend?
That's a poor precedent to set. because we're dangerously close to calling singles albums.
Yeah, no, I don't want to. I was just
having a bit of a meme. Have a meme moment.
I think not because it was maybe it's because it was the first one we listened to. It caught me more by surprise and was like, oh wow, I actually really like this. And then 100 gecs pushed more boundaries, and I think I enjoy individual songs more, but I think as an overall experience, I like Glaive's album more.
I would say that gecs is like a more like seminal work of hyperpop. Like this is the hyperpop album.
You can point to it and
yeah,
be like, hey,
man,
check
this
out.
has got all the shit that is in this. It probably doesn't. I'm sure there's a bunch of nuance that I'm missing there. But Glaive seems like a lot more of a like independent, nuanced, maybe not nuanced, but like developed personally sound.
Like he's
Use of
Like
the
this
acoustic guitars,
yeah.
not as far as I'm aware traditionally a hyperpop thing.
And his mumbling was also. I'm not joking around here.
I know you're not.
And like having those effects, I'd think that so in the Charli XCX, I'm pretty sure she sang it and then like harmonized it from the one take of her singing. That's what I think happened, and then Glaive sang it multiple times with different pitches and affected it from there. That's what I like. It sounded different to me like that.
I would need to re-listen to
Fair enough.
A, understand what you're trying to
So
say, and B,
yeah, fair enough.
confirm if I think that's the
But
case.
yeah, man, what an interesting month.
yeah.
Get into hyperpop. It won't take any time at all. I'm voting for myself.
Okay. I was like, are you picking someone there or not?
Yeah. Good
did.
on you, Glaive. Well done. We love you.
I really liked how there's an I in his name.
Yeah. It would be pretty weird.
Click above to find out what else we've listened to this month.
Click below to support the artist we just listened to.
And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode.